Tonight, let us wander into a world where the great shout for independence was never raised. A world where the tensions of the 13 colonies settled, not into the crack of musket fire, but into a long, slow sigh of compromise. Close your eyes and let the year be 1774. The air in Philadelphia is thick with late summer humidity, the scent of horse and hay and ripe fruit hanging over the cobbled streets. Delegates gather, as they did in our world, voices taut with grievance. But here, in this quiet corner of possibility, the conversation turns not on a pivot of defiance, but on a hinge of weary practical hope. The coercive acts are debated, yes, and the rights of Englishmen are asserted. Yet, as the candlelight gutters in the deep hours, a different document begins to take shape, not a declaration, but a petition, one that speaks of loyalty intertwined with a plea for understanding. The vote is close, the atmosphere heavy with what might have been, but the measure passes. The olive branch, however fragile, is extended, and so the spark is not struck. Picture, then, the ripple of this silence. The spring of 1775 arrives, and the countryside around Lexington and Concord is peaceful. The morning mist clings to stone walls and new plowed fields, and the only urgent sound is the call of a waking robin. There are no midnight riders, no shots heard round the world. The silence is not an emptiness, but a different kind of fullness, a space where other futures can grow. In London, the petition is received, not with triumph, but with a measured bureaucratic relief. Debates in Parliament shift, ever so slightly, from suppression to negotiation. A new ministry, less rigid, considers a novel idea, a permanent seated assembly for the North American colonies in London, with voices to advise on their own governance. It is a slow, grinding process, like a great ship changing course on a calm sea. The change is almost imperceptible at first, and so the years begin to unfurl differently. The political entity that emerges is not the United States of America, but the Dominion of British North America. It is a loose, evolving confederation of provinces under the Crown, each with its own local assembly, but bound by a shared parliament in Westminster where colonial representatives sit, their accents a curious melody in the ancient halls. Boston, New York, Philadelphia. They remain bustling ports, but their skylines evolve with a slower, more hybrid grace. Georgian brickwork, so beloved in England, is adorned with wider porches to catch the summer breeze, and taller windows to frame the vast, brilliant light of the continent. You can see it in the architecture, this blending of traditions. Churches have the clean, elegant spires of New England, but the stained glass inside might bear the royal coat of arms alongside images of local saints and indigenous symbols. It is a quiet dialogue in wood and stone. Let us follow the thread of a single life through this tapestry. Meet Elias Thorne, born in 1795 in the province of Virginia. His father is a planter, but of a different sort than in our history. Without a Revolutionary War to disrupt trade and allegiances, the institution of slavery begins its decline decades earlier, not through a bloody civil war, but through a long, complex, and fraught series of imperial acts and compensated manumissions. It is a flawed and painful process, but its pace is different. By the time Elias comes of age, his family's wealth is transitioning to wheat, to timber, and to a new, curious venture, the cultivation of fine paper for the burgeoning print shops of the Dominion. We find Elias in 1817, a young man of 22, not on a battlefield, but on a dock in Norfolk. The air is salty and cool, smelling of tar and distant rain. He is seeing off a shipment of his paper, a smooth, cream-colored stock, bound for London. His companion is a young woman named Clara, whose family came from New York. She wears a dress of practical dove-gray wool, but the shawl around her shoulders is a vibrant, intricate pattern learned from the Haudenosaunee communities to the north, a trait of craft and respect that has flourished in this world of continued, if uneasy, connection. They speak not of republicanism, but of representation. Elias is considering standing for a seat in the local assembly. My father says it's all talk and no action, he murmurs, watching the sails being unfurled. Clara smiles, her breath a soft cloud in the harbor air. But talk is the action here, she says, a slow action, like the turning of pages in one of the books your paper will become. Her words settle in him, a gentle truth. Their world is one of incremental change, of petitions and committees and long, slow voyages across the Atlantic that carry ideas back and forth. Like pollen on a slow wind, the technological pulse of this world beats to a different rhythm. Without the urgent, unifying pressure of a war for nationhood, the drive for industrialization is more diffuse, more regional. In New England, water-powered mills for textiles and paper spring up along the rivers. In Pennsylvania, ironworks and coal mines supply the empire. But the great continent-spanning railroads are slower to arrive, planned by imperial committees that debate routes for years. Travel is often by canal and coastal schooner, a slower, more contemplative way to move across the land. Elias does not become a soldier or a founding father. He becomes a printer and a minor politician. His life is measured in seasons. The damp spring days when the paper pulp is just right. The hot summer evenings debating drainage laws in a room thick with the smell of beeswax candles and old books. The crisp autumn journeys to Williamsburg for the provincial assembly. He corresponds with a man in Birmingham about steam presses, and with a cousin in Montreal about the quality of Canadian timber. His identity is layered. A Virginian, a British subject, a North American. He feels the vastness of his continent in his bones, but his political horizon is often fixed on the distant, fog-shrouded city of London. It is a life of quiet ambition and local loyalty. As decades turn into centuries, the cultural landscape of the Dominion deepens into its own unique patterns. The great literary voices that emerge write not of forging a new national myth, but of exploring a complex, pluralistic identity. Their novels are often tales of journeying. Up the great rivers, across the prairies, or across the ocean to the imperial heart, struggling with questions of belonging and place within a vast, ancient system. The music is a rich blend. Anglican hymns in the coastal cities, so fiddle tunes from the Appalachian settlements that echo with Celtic and West African rhythms, and the complex haunting flute melodies of the Plains nations, heard more often in trade towns and cultural festivals. There is no star-spangled banner, but a handful of anthems exist for different occasions: a solemn hymn for the king's birthday, a stirring maritime song for the combined fleet, a gentle popular ballad about the river wide that speaks of the Mississippi's slow journey to the sea. The 20th century arrives without the Dominion fracturing. It is a key member of the British Commonwealth, but one with a distinct, sometimes stubborn, voice. Its cities are a mix of the old and the new. Soaring glass towers in Toronto and Philadelphia stand beside carefully preserved Georgian squares. Electric trams glide quietly down streets, named not for presidents, but for royal patrons and local governors. The newspapers report on sessions of the North American Parliament in Ottawa, a grand Gothic building that sits beside the cold, clear waters of the Radeau Canal. The world wars, when they come, are fought under a common banner, but the memorials in the town squares list the dead by province: Newfoundland, Carolina, Ontario, California. A mosaic of loss under a single crown. And what of the feeling of this world? There is a certain continuity to it, a sense of deep roots for good and ill. The weight of history is palpable, sometimes feeling like a heavy, comfortable cloak, other times like a chain. Progress is often a matter of patient erosion, not explosive change. The night sky over a small town in the province of Massachusetts looks much the same as it did 100 years prior. The same constellations wheel above, and the light from the lampposts is a soft, gaslit yellow, only slowly giving way to electric bulbs. The soundscape is quieter, less frantic. You can hear the rustle of broadsheet newspapers, the clip-clop of horses on cobblestones, lingering longer into the century, the chime of cathedral bells marking the hours with a stately, unchanging rhythm. Now, let your mind drift back across this quiet timeline like moonlight sliding over a still pond. In this world, the idea of freedom was not born in a single, violent, glorious rupture. It was negotiated, argued, petitioned, and woven slowly into the fabric of law and custom over generations. It is a freedom tempered by tradition, a liberty understood within the context of historical obligation. Is it a better world? That is not for us to judge tonight. It is simply a different one. A world where the current of history flowed through a gentler channel, carving a landscape that is familiar yet strangely serene. As you feel sleep drawing near, imagine a single, quiet scene from this alternate present. A researcher in a vast, silent archive in London, her fingers tracing the faded ink of Elias Thorne's letters home from his first trip to Westminster. The paper is still strong, his careful script telling of fog on the Thames, of the immense, dusty library where he studied, of his homesickness for the bright, bold colors of a Virginia autumn. The only sound is the soft whisper of a page turning, a sound like a gentle tide on a faraway shore. The past is not a thunderous echo here, but a low, continuous hum, a bass line to the melody of the present. So, we leave this world of quiet compromise, of sails on a horizon, of debates in sun-dappled assembly rooms, a world where the trinket of liberty, if it grew, was watered not by the blood of patriots, but by the long, slow rain of dialogue. Let the image soften and blur at the oddas, like ink on damp paper. Let the gentle tide of this different history wash over you, soothing away the sharp edges of today, reminding you that time is a river with many possible bends, and every moment holds a universe of quiet might have beens. There is a peace in that thought, a deep and calming peace. Allow it to carry you now into your own quiet realm of dreams. Thank you for dreaming with us tonight. Sleep well. The researcher's name was Anya. She worked in the round reading room of the British Museum, a space that in this world had never relinquished its vast collection of books to a separate library. The dome above her was a familiar, comforting vault, the air carrying the scent of old paper, polished wood, and the faint, clean tang of preservation chemicals. Her lamp cast a warm pool of light on the document box before her, labeled in a careful hand, Thorn, Elias, Correspondence, 1819-1822, Colonial Affairs Committee Testament Dili. She had not been seeking anything grand. Her thesis was a modest one, a study of transatlantic paper quality and its impact on bureaucratic efficiency in the early 19th century. But Elias Thorne's letters, preserved not for their historical drama, but for their mundane detail about paper shipments, had quietly sidetracked her. She lifted a sheet, the paper itself, a testament to his life's work, still supple, a rich cream, bearing the faint, elegant watermark of a tobacco leaf intertwined with an oak tree. His handwriting was precise, the ink of faded sepia. October 12th, 1819, London. The fog this morning was of a consistency I imagine one could slice and serve on a plate, were it not so thoroughly gray and tasting of coal. It muffles the bells of the city into mere suggestions of sound. I write from my lodgings in Bloomsbury, the fire struggling against the damp that seems to seep from the very bricks. How I long for the crispness of home, for the way the light falls in Virginia this time of year, not this diluted, pearl-gray light, but a golden clarifying shower through the turning leaves. My appearance before the committee was today. I presented samples of our Dominion-made paper, arguing for its adoption for all interprovincial dispatches in place of the inferior stock from Liverpool. The members were polite, if distracted. Lord Haversham examined a sheet, held it to the window, and remarked only on the clarity of the watermark. A pretty design, Mr. Thorne. Very colonial. I was not sure if it was a compliment. The discussion turned, as it always does, to cost and to shipping tariffs. It is wearying, Clara. Sometimes I feel I am not a man arguing a point, but a mere vessel carrying a whisper across a vast, noisy room. Yet, when I handed the clerk my written statement, I saw him run his thumb appreciatively over the surface. A small thing, but I took my solace in it. Anya paused, her own thumb resting where the clerk's had 2 centuries prior. She could see it, the high-ceilinged committee room likely smoky, the members in their wigs and woolens, the young colonial with his quiet passion for fiber and finish. His was a world where change hinged on such minute moments. The approval of a watermark, the favor of an undersecretary, the slow alignment of commercial interest. He turned the page. The letters traced the slow arc of that first trip. Elias described the overwhelming grandeur of Westminster, not as a symbol of oppression, but as a labyrinthine engine of governance he was trying, patiently, to understand. He wrote of visiting the printing houses of Fleet Street, of the thunderous steam presses that made his heart race with a mixture of awe and trepidation. They were so impersonal, so fast. He preferred, he confessed to Clara, the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of the hand press, the careful inking of the plate, the moment of suspense as you peeled back the sheet to see the impression. It was a philosophy, she realized, a metaphor for his world. Speed was suspect, care was virtue. He wrote of his homesickness, not just for people, but for space, for scent, for light. Here, the horizon is a wall of stone. At home, it is a promise. He attended a debate in the House of Commons, where a member from Yorkshire and a member from New Brunswick argued amiably over fishing rights, their accents clashing like different chords, yet finding a harmony in parliamentary procedure. He heard a choir sing in St. Paul's, the notes soaring into the dome, and felt a profound, complicated belonging. He was an outsider, yet he was, technically, home. The cognitive dissonance of it hummed in his prose. Anya carefully set the 1819 letters aside and drew a later bundle from the box. The paper was slightly different here, a bit more refined, a smoother finish. The watermark had changed. The tobacco leaf was smaller, a wheat sheaf now dominant beside the oak. September 15th, Waits Maya, Williamsburg. My dearest Clara, the assembly has adjourned for the season. The final debate was on the proposed extension of the Chesapeake and James Canal. For 3 days, we heard arguments about water tables, property rights, and the cost of Belgian dredging equipment. Young Henry Lee, who fancies himself a radical, argued for a direct railway instead, quoting figures from the Manchester lines. He was shouted down, not for the idea, but for its precipitousness. We are not Lancashire. Old Mr. Randolph wheezed from his seat. Our soil is soft, our distance is vast. A canal is a gentleman's conveyance. It allows for contemplation. Sometimes, my love, I fear we prize contemplation over conclusion. Yet, when I walked home this evening, the setting sun turning the brick walls of the Capitol to a rosy gold, and heard nothing but the cicadas and the distant cry of a heron on the river, I felt a deep peace. This is our pace. It is maddening. It is beautiful. Our son asked me yesterday if Virginia will ever be a country. I told him it is a country. A province is a kind of country with its own heart and soul. It just shares a king with others, as brothers might share a father. He seemed to consider this, then asked if he could have a pony instead, a more manageable question, for which I was grateful. Anya smiled, the personal nestled within the political life continuing. She read of the birth of their children, of the slow conversion of the family's holdings, of the death of Elias's father, and the weight of stewardship that followed. She read of a trip he took in 1840, not to London, but west to the edge of the province of Virginia, where it met the vast, loosely administered territory of Transappalachia. His description shifted. The prose became more expansive, breathless. The mountains are not like our gentle hills. They are a tumultuous sea of green and blue, arrested in mid-crash. The people here live by different rhythms. They are tied to London by law, but their gaze is turned inward to the continent. I met a trapper who had been as far as the Great Salt Lake under a joint British Haudenosaunee trading charter. He spoke of deserts that shimmer like ghosts and mountains that cut the sky with teeth of pure white. He showed me a map drawn on elk hide. It bore the king's crest in one corner, but the geography was all native names and the notations were in a blend of English and French. It felt more real, more urgent than any ordnance survey in my possession. I purchased it. It hangs in my study now, a reminder that the Dominion is not just what is debated in Ottawa or London, but this immense breathing mystery we are but a part of. The final items in the box were not letters, but printed ephemera, a handbill for Thorne and Sons fine paper, suppliers to the Provincial Assembly and the Westminster Colonial Office, a menu from a dinner in Richmond celebrating the visit of a minor royal prince, with elaborate courses and listed toasts to the king, the prosperity of the Dominion, and the bonds of mutual trade, and a clipping, yellowed and brittle, from the Virginia Gazetteer, dated 1855. It was an obituary.